How will the Fed's decision affect the economy? NTD's Don Ma spoke with Vance Ginn about the interest rate hike. Ginn is a former Associate Director for Economic Policy of the Office of Management and Budget.
The Fed raised interest rates by 0.75% to try to get inflation under control. But Vance, how far can raising rates go? If we're talking about gas prices, can they bring that down?
The Federal Reserve raised interest rates 75 basis points today. Now, that initial move itself won't bring down inflation. What we really need to see is a slowing of the money supply that they've been putting out into the economy. Unfortunately, things will probably get worse before they get better, and this really won't influence a lot of the gas prices because that's dealing with oil production. And so what we really need to see is more of a pro-growth approach that allows people to have more jobs, that allows for more production to happen, and that will bring it down, across the economy, not just oil and gas, but across the economy, and that will bring down prices. And so I think a good step today by the Federal Reserve is raising 75 basis points, but there's going to be much more for them to do.
On that point of gas prices, what's your reaction to President Biden's blaming oil refineries taking profit for high gas prices?
Well, what you have to look at is the overall profit margins. What we haven't seen is large increases in profitability by these firms. Yes, there are profits, but not historically speaking. You have to compare these over time. And it's just another way for the Biden administration to deflect from their poor policies to not produce here in this country. And instead, they're going to Saudi Arabia and to Venezuela and asking them to produce more when we've got a lot more oil here at home.
Now, Vance, what are the limitations of just purely, raising interest rates? Which prices can be lowered? Which ones won't be affected at all?
Well, the first thing that we see whenever you raise interest rates is that it first affects, the stock market. Also, bond prices tend to go down as we've seen interest rates go up. Mortgage rates are now over 6%. And then over time, as the Fed pulls more money out of the private sector, you'll see lower prices at the food, when you go to the store, when you buy gas and other things. But that takes a lot longer to take place just from raising the interest rate by the Federal Reserve.
Now, talking about the economy, if the Fed takes more drastic action, it could make unemployment higher and a shrinking economy more likely. I want to know, Vance, is this a good trade-off?
Well, it's not a good trade-off. Things will begin to slow. It can only be a boom for so long before the bust will hit. And unfortunately, it will be hit hard because of higher interest rates, slower economic growth, and a higher unemployment rate over time. But it's almost necessary to get away from these bad policies out of D.C. that we've had from the Biden administration's overregulation, Congress's overspending, and the Fed's overprinting of money. Now we need to see the opposite of that, to where things can deflate and get back to some sort of normalcy in the economy.
In the discussion of lowering inflation, some economists are proposing pro-growth policies like lowering flat rate tax or limiting government spending. What do you think about that, Vance?
I think that's exactly what we need right now. We need those pro-growth policies. Whenever you look at the time of the Trump administration, of the deregulation that took place, and the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, there was just an extraordinary amount of growth that happened then, where real inflation-adjusted median household income reached the highest on record. The poverty rate reached the lowest on record, and this was across demographics. And that was without this massive amount of government spending that's been put in the economy and the regulation that's been put on the economy by the Biden administration. And I think we need to return back to what we had before and then look at the states and say, okay, states, what have y'all been doing right? What's been working? It's by limiting spending, providing tax relief, and not over-regulating the economy. And if you do that, we'll have a soaring economy across the country again, and more jobs, and lower inflation, and gas prices to boot.
Vance Ginn, Chief Economist at Texas Policy Foundation, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.